Hi everyone, how's it going?
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm okay. I'm actually doing really well.
Killer Q, no problem, man. I hope that's what you were looking for. Hi, Blooding, Jules, Karen, William. Thank you all so much for joining us today. Sarcastic Sister, thank you so much. Jill, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling pretty good today.
Feeling a lot
My
better?
nose, yeah, but I got a stuffy nose now, but I'm okay. I'm actually doing better than I was.
Good. That's good to hear. Uh, so we're streaming live on YouTube and TikTok. Um, we have a goal here on TikTok, and please don't forget to support moderator. She's here to help. She's moderating multiple lives daily, simultaneously. So let's get started. So the peace talks are over, right? The Russia-Ukraine peace talks are over after the cluster that occurred in the Oval Office today. And honestly, I think they were probably just sabotaged. Um, the president promised he could end this war on day one. We're a month into it. He's getting nowhere. So I think they just sabotaged this whole thing in front of the media just so they could blame it on Zelensky. But um, I'm sure everyone's making content about that, which means I won't be because I typically don't do what everyone else does. That also means um, any potential oil deals regarding OPEC, Russia, and all of that would probably cease to exist as well. So, yeah, not good. Not good. Yeah, Russian media was there. I saw that. That's interesting that Russian media is in the White House. Um, what else happened today? The natural gas inventory report came out last night. I told you guys, I think about a week ago, that there was going to be a huge draw in natural gas inventories, and that's exactly what happened. Just under 300 billion cubic feet of loss in our natural gas inventories, which puts us about a half a trillion cubic feet below the 5 year average. Um, Fortunately, right now, um, there's a lot of warm weather in the forecast, and so that's keeping natural gas prices from just going through the roof. But we are well below the 5 year average, which means throughout summer, natural gas prices are going to be significantly higher than they were last year. Probably at least twice as much as they were last year. So that's your utility bills that we've been talking about. That's your utility bills, and do not expect it to get any better. I'm telling you, it's going to get worse. If if you use electricity powered by natural gas, it's going to get worse because we're in for a really hot summer, and people are going to be using a lot of electricity to try to cool their homes. It's not just extreme temperatures that are cold; it's also extreme temperatures that are hot. And so I expect to see people's utility bills to continue to rise or stay elevated at the very least. So let's see if we have any questions. Oh, I made a piece of content I posted it 15 or 20 minutes ago. Yesterday, I made a piece of content explaining how Donald Trump's drilling ban was still in effect because he didn't reverse it. When Donald Trump signed the executive order to release Joe Biden's drilling ban, he didn't release his own, which is in effect till 2032. And Joe Biden's drilling ban was worded in a way to where it explicitly did not overturn Donald Trump's drilling ban. And the reason Joe Biden's executive order did not overturn Donald Trump's drilling ban is because Joe Biden did not have the authority to overturn that ban. If you remember, back when Joe Biden instituted that drilling ban, a lot of Democrats were celebrating because he used the Outer Continental Shelves Act as a basis of law for his executive order. And what that means is that a president in the future cannot overturn that, right? So, even Donald Trump's executive order overturning Joe Biden's is going to be challenged in court. It's already challenged in court, and he's going to lose. He's lost that case before. But more importantly, what all this means is Donald Trump can't even reverse his own drilling ban because he used the same piece of legislation that Joe Biden did. He can't even reverse his own if he wanted to. And so the Biden administration knew that. That's why they didn't address Trump's drilling ban in their memorandums on their drilling bans. They just didn't address it because they knew they didn't have the authority. So that's kind of a wild thing. Donald Trump can't even reverse his own executive order from his last administration. Oh boy. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today. Jill, is it nice and warm where you're at, or are you in a blizzard still?
I'm no longer, it's 50. Like, we went from that hard snow where it was laying on the ground to 50 degrees. Like, what?
That's what I thought was going to happen.
That was so weird.
What'd you have, like 6 inches of snow last night? Is it already all gone?
Not 6 inches.
Huh?
I think it's 6 inches.
Well, you said you couldn't see the road of your driveway, so I...
Well, yeah, it was covered.
Yeah.
Like that. It wasn't 6 inches, though. I know you're messing with me. But yeah, I'm sure it was gone.
No, I'm really not messing with you. I was wondering if it's all melted and gone now. Like it's...
Yeah, it's gone. There is nothing out there.
Yeah.
The sun was shining too bright.
Can you make it so your video shows the live chat so we can refer to questions that you give answers to? Can you guys not see the chat?
Wait, who's not seeing the chat?
Brian.
On the replays, they're not showing. He means on the replays, like when they go back and watch it, the live chat is not showing for some reason.
Oh, on the replays.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I'll figure that out, and there's got to be a way to do it. I'm sure other people do it. Okay. Yeah, I'll try to figure that out, Brian.
Yeah, because people like to read that. He's not the first one to say that.
How big of a disaster was the Trump-Zelensky thing? If you haven't figured me out yet, I'm not one of those people that get outraged by everything. Like, there's outrage everywhere, and I saw it, and it was stupid. But I don't get outraged over everything anymore. I think I'm desensitized to all this stuff. That doesn't mean it wasn't a train wreck. It was obviously a train wreck. But I think it was planned. I think that whole thing was planned. I really do. They knew they were failing in their peace talks. They didn't want to take any responsibility for it. So they start a big argument in the Oval Office, demanding respect and thanks, as if he's never thanked the United States. And then I found it interesting that J.D. Vance explicitly pointed out that apparently Zelensky went to Pennsylvania during the election or something. I didn't even realize that was a thing.
It
And I guess he
honestly,
did he endorse Kamala or what? But it is all of that because he endorsed Kamala. Like, are we gonna give up on a peace talks on a major conflict over something that happened during a campaign? I don't, but I honestly think they sabotaged it just so they could blame Zelensky. And you have Donald Trump out here acting like he never called Zelensky a dictator because he can't remember what he said 5 days ago or whenever it was. So I think it was a show. Everything is a show with these people. It's all a show.
so
I Go ahead.
I got mad right when I watched it. It did make me mad, and I do believe you that it was like a setup for him. But yeah, it pissed me off. I'm sorry, it pissed
Yeah.
me off.
Well, it was when I saw it. It was kind of like, yeah, this is kind of what I expected. Like I knew that it would all crumble eventually. I just didn't know how. And then as I sat and watched it all crumble on my phone, like when I was watching that, I knew like as soon as that was over that they were going to come out and say we're done. The peace talks are done. Like you know, I just knew it. I was like, yeah, this is it. That's a wrap on this thing. So I think I it's possible that Ukraine is actually better off. It's possible that Ukraine is better off. I think a lot of our allies are going to step up, and I think they'll get the assistance they need, mostly from the EU. Germany's already said that they're all in. A lot of European nations, and they probably won't have all the delays. You know, they'll probably fast track assistance and help them any way they can. So who knows? I mean, I could be wrong, but maybe this ends up being better for
So
Ukraine, not having to deal with Donald Trump. You know.
So, when he came to Pennsylvania, he did not come. That is not a thing. Supporting the other team, whatever they said, I can't remember. That's not. He came here to see Shapiro.
Ah, yeah, and that's why I didn't comment. Like that's why I didn't say that he supported the opposition because I wasn't sure exactly what he did in Pennsylvania, and that's why I was like, yeah, they accused him of it, but I didn't know. I didn't know what happened. I didn't remember Zelensky supporting Kamala Harris. I certainly didn't remember that.
Because if,
Um,
yeah. Oh, look at that. You got a super chat.
yeah, David, thank you so much for the super chat. Wow, brother, I really appreciate it. What is your take on BP's announcement on renewables and goals? So, I covered this a little bit in some content. And for those of you that don't know, BP recently announced, and keep in mind, BP stands for Beyond Petroleum, right? They changed, that used to be British Petroleum. They changed it to Beyond Petroleum because they were moving beyond petroleum, right, towards renewables, clean energy, all that. They recently announced they're abandoning all that. So they're yanking their investments out of renewable energy, and I believe they were going to increase their investments in fossil fuel energy by $10 billion, and basically yanking all their renewable investments. And I kind of predicted this a while back. I said that one thing I was concerned about was when these big oil companies start pumping dollars into renewable energy, and when the shareholders don't see the returns, that's going to be a problem because at the end of the day, renewable energy just simply is not as lucrative as fossil fuels. It's just not. And, it's not that people don't make a lot of money with renewables, but the thing is, it takes a long time. It takes a lot longer to get your return on investment with renewable energy than it does fossil fuels. And so the push by BP to invest a lot more money in renewables and move in that direction has just it's been beating their stock price to death, right? Their stock price has been taking a hit for several years. And I think, the shareholders had enough. At the end of the day, these companies are beholden to their shareholders. If they want to keep those shareholders, they have to do what their shareholders want them to do. And I'm sure that they heard from their shareholders and had to make a decision. And so that's what they've done. Um, aren't renewables subsidized heavily? Yes, yes, renewables are heavily subsidized, but that doesn't make them super profitable, right? Um, it's not enough just to be subsidized. If fossil fuels, they get subsidies, right? They get their tax breaks, their tax deductions, and then they turn that into 30-40 billion dollars a year. Renewables, they get their subsidies and they turn that into hundreds of millions or maybe a billion, but they don't turn it into 30 billion. And that's the difference. I've said for years on social media that people put their money where they get the best return on investment. They have no allegiance or loyalty to what is creating their wealth. They don't care if it's oil. They don't care if it's wind, right? And if the wind and the solar and the hydrogen and the things that BP were working on was, you know, was resulting in 30, 20, 30, 40 billion dollars a year in profit, then we wouldn't be discussing this right now. Then I wouldn't have got that awesome super chat from Dave. And but it's true. Nobody's loyal. I am in the oil and gas business myself. Um, if I could make twice as much money doing anything else, that's what I would go do. I wouldn't care about oil and I don't care how I feed my family, right? I'm gonna go do what's best for me, best for my family, right? And that's how investors are. That's how these billionaires think. I want to take this $1 billion and I want to get a couple of more $1 billion out of it. And I don't care how I do it. People are going to put their money where they get the most return. And until renewables can compete with fossil fuels as far as return on investment, you can give them all the subsidies, all the tax breaks, you can help them as much as possible. At the end of the day, if it's not as lucrative as something else, then something else is going to get the money. Thank you so much for that question and that super chat, Dave. Yeah, I mean that is how capitalism works. Capitalism doesn't care about what is morally right and wrong. Capitalism only cares about return on investment and profit margins. What the right thing to do, or what the morally right thing to do, or what's best for the larger society, what's best for the world, has no bearing on how capitalism works. It just doesn't. It's a big game of Monopoly, and we are. Where are we at, Jill? Are we on Baltic? It's it's a game of Monopoly, and we're sitting on Baltic. One of those cheap ass purple ones. That's where we're sitting, and they're sitting on Park Place and Boardwalk, right? Um, Oil and gas are probably the least of our problems after today's shit show. Today's shit show was just us seeing in real time what was already a shit show before today. We just got a chance to see it. Thank you, Daria. Baltic Avenue. You can tell I haven't played Monopoly in a really long time.
Yeah, I was sitting here racking my brain, so thank you, because I knew he wasn't right, but I could not think of it.
Brian lives in free parking. Congratulations, Brian. Congratulations. Did I ever work for EOG? No, I have never worked for EOG. should the U.S. invest more in fusion research? I can't really answer that question because I don't know how much we're investing in it at the moment. You know what I mean? I don't know how much money. I know this, whatever we were investing in it um, 3 months ago, we're probably not anymore. Yeah, I really don't know how much we're investing in fusion energy or if that's more of a private matter. What happened today? Frank wants to know. Well, Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and media, Russian media, who was in the White House, they all ganged up on Vladimir Zelensky and they had a shouting match in the Oval Office in front of all the cameras for everyone to see. And when that ended, the peace talks were over. So that's what happened today. That's what happened today. And like I said, I believe that was all staged and done intentionally because the peace talks were over anyway. The peace talks were over anyway. We expect Ukraine to give up something that they're not willing to give up. They're not willing to give up 1 square inch of their country. And I can respect that because their position is we were attacked, we didn't do anything wrong, we're not giving up anything. And, I can respect that. I can respect that. And, let's be honest, a huge piece of their country is leveled and gone. And, they're not willing to just forget about the sacrifices they've made and the destruction and death they've had in their country to just turn around and give up a bigger piece of it. Because if they do, you know, I if they give up more of their country to end this, then it won't end, right? Um, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, it'll happen again. They'll go in and try to get a bigger piece. Joe Booz says congressional appropriations for fusion technology is $690 million, Frank. $690 million. My check for them fracking on my property was 2 times higher today. Will that continue? That depends on when that activity started. If that activity started in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 months, then yes, that will continue. And so if this is your first good check from them doing something, then that will continue. But I can tell you right now, depending on how it landed on the calendar, your next check may be even bigger, maybe the same. But expect those checks to shrink as time goes by, which you may well know if you're a mineral rights owner. Oil and gas production from wells decline basically from the minute they start, right? So they will be declining going forward. That's what oil wells do. So yeah, congratulations on that. Thank you, Duncan McLeod. The capable global fusion is a money pit. Fission works. Besides, the only real fusion we can replicate is on a testing ground in Nevada or a lab with a lot of lasers. Yeah, it's very difficult. It's it's easy to create things in a lab, but to take that and put it on mass scale and in a mass market across an entire country, that's a whole nother matter. That's a whole nother matter. Do I think Trump will cut Ukraine off? Yeah, I think it's already happened. That's a done deal. You know, in that meeting, Donald Trump said basically, you have to make concessions. You know, he basically told them we weren't going to help them anymore if they didn't make some concessions. So I'm pretty sure. Um, how do you get me more followers? You know, I don't ask people to go out and help me get followers, but I mean the best thing you could do to help me with that is to just share my content, right? Pretty simple little thing, you know, just share a link somewhere, you know, Blue Sky or Substack or Threads or X, wherever you see it, just share it. That's what you can do. Thank you, Frankie.
Someone wants to know why you don't wear a suit.
No, that wasn't me. One of the people in the media, uh, Washington Press Corps, or one of the media people in the Oval Office, I think it was a media person, asked Zelensky why he wasn't wearing a suit. And I didn't catch it word for word. I can't repeat it verbatim, but you have the media in the Oval Office asking a leader of one of our allies why they're not wearing a suit.
Not just the media, they also have that Russian media in there, which is blows my mind.
I want to say thank you for speaking truth and presenting facts. Watching you has benefited me in my job. I'm an economist. Keep doing what you do. Thank you so much, David. Brad says, why not invest in hydrogen for fuel? So actually, there was an announcement out today. I can't remember the name of the company. They were going to invest more in hydrogen, but they wanted to use hydrogen to make natural gas. The problem with hydrogen is it basically, hydrogen takes 2 units of energy to produce 1 unit of energy, right? And as long as it takes more energy consumption to produce less energy, that never works, right? That never works. Um, you can't use more energy than you're producing and making a product and be profitable. And that's a more of a technical way of saying it's not profitable. It's too expensive to make for the return on investment, right? It's just not economically viable yet. There's a lot of money flowing into it, but it doesn't seem to be moving. It doesn't seem to be going anywhere. As far as why I don't wear a suit, I don't own a suit. That's a true story. Did you know that, Jill? Um,
Yes, you said that once before.
yeah, I don't even own a suit. What am I going to do with a suit? Go to the bank? Will Westmoreland in the chat on YouTube. Thank you, Will. Mr. Global, what impact did cheap natural gas have on coal production? You know, for many years, Republicans claimed that the Obama administration destroyed the coal industry. It wasn't the Obama administration, it was natural gas. Natural gas destroyed coal. It was a perfect example of how things work in a competitive commodities market, right? There was a much cheaper alternative that has a much higher energy density and is cleaner. And so that's what people went to. Had nothing to do with the Obama administration or any other administration. There was a product that was better and cheaper, and people switched to the better and cheaper product. So 100% cheap natural gas destroyed coal. And the thing about natural gas is it does sometimes get expensive, but far more often than not, natural gas is cheaper. You know, probably better than 95% of the time, natural gas is going to be cheaper than coal. Yeah. Great question, Will. Thanks for coming in, man. I saw you in a live earlier with someone. Don't do anything nefarious with that guy. He was in a live with Geo Hussar earlier. You don't own a suit because you're Gen X. You don't give a damn what others. That's exactly right. That's probably exactly right. I don't give a damn. I dress like a bum half the time. I really do. Not sure if you answered this. What is going on with OPEC and Venezuela? Deal canceled. So keep in mind, just so people don't get confused, um, Venezuela is a part of OPEC, right? But what's going on? So Donald Trump revoked the import license that Chevron had in Venezuela to import oil into the United States. That was granted by Biden in 2022. Donald Trump had put sanctions on Venezuela. Biden reversed that. It was supposed to be temporary. It turned out to not be temporary. And so that's about 230,000 barrels a day. That'll be off the market. Bloomberg is reporting that OPEC Plus is going to restore some production cuts, which would increase production by, I think it was 140 or 50,000 barrels a day. Completely meaningless. Those amounts of oil aren't enough to do anything. So they're really non-stories as far as gas prices are concerned. But it is interesting to see how this stuff plays out, even when it doesn't affect gas prices. Williston says, as a person who works in the power generation industry, gas-fired power plants put out the same or more power, and the overhead is 90% less. Exactly. What will the completion of the Keystone XL pipeline actually do? Nobody thinks it's going to happen, first of all. Nobody in the industry, there's no analyst, there's no experts. We all agree it might have a 1% chance of happening, if that. What would it do? It wouldn't do anything. It would not do anything. The myth that pipelines lower prices is just that. It's a myth. It's always been a myth. There's never been a pipeline built anywhere that lowered prices for anybody except for the people that own the pipeline. It saves them money on transportation and logistics. That's not passed on to us. That you don't get any benefit from that. So what would happen if the Keystone XL was completed? Not much for the consumer. Not much of anything at all. You could make the argument that it could actually put upward pressure on gas prices, because if that's another pipeline to a port that allows Canada to sell more oil to overseas buyers, then it could actually put upward pressure on WCS. I don't think it would be significant at all, because I do think the United States would buy a ton of it, but it likely won't do anything. Whether it's built or not built, we are not going to see anything happen regardless of what happens with it, is what I'm saying. Not true. It would allow Canada to sell on the open market easier. They can already do that with the existing Keystone and with the Trans Mountain, and that hasn't resulted in any price increases for WCS. And understand something, if the Keystone XL goes in and that increases, pipeline capacity to the Gulf of Mexico, if a lot of that oil is sold to overseas buyers, if they're given preferential treatment, they'll just put additional tariffs on that oil as well. The United States is going to get their money out of that pipeline one way or the other if it exists. But the important thing is we're not going to see any benefit from it. I originally supported the Keystone XL just from a national security perspective. Everyone else wanted it because they thought it would lower prices. I would recommend you look at gas prices starting in 2010. Look at the day the Keystone Pipeline opened and look what happened to gas prices for 4 years straight after the Keystone Pipeline opened. They went up. They went up significantly for 4 years. The only reason they came back down was because of a crash. Now, the pipeline didn't cause the prices to go up, that's for sure. But pipelines don't lower costs for anybody. Donald Trump is currently telling people that the Constitution pipeline that he wants run from Pennsylvania to New York will save people 70% on their electric bills. That's not even possible. That's not even possible. When 70% of your electric bill is a delivery fee that's not even related to the price of natural gas, how's it going to save you 70%? Not to mention the fact that the natural gas that they're currently buying in that area in New York through the Iroquois pipeline is Canadian natural gas, and it's actually cheaper than gas in the United States. Power generation from Canadian natural gas is cheaper. It's like 2 cents, 2 or 3 cents per kilowatt hour. If that was U.S. natural gas, it'd be like 7 cents. It's crazy town if you think a pipeline's going to save you 70%. You're in crazy town if you think that. Why did TC Energy just not build a larger pipeline next to the current Keystone? That's the question I've been asking forever. And because if TC Energy would have just twinned the existing Keystone, if they would have just twinned it, which means run the XL right next to it, right? Follow the same route, it would have gone through easily. It would have easily gone through. There might have been some pushback from Obama, but if they had done that when Donald Trump took office and approved the XL again after Obama got rid of it, it would have been finished before Joe Biden took office, and he wouldn't have been able to stop it. So the only thing I can think is that they were trying to save money by taking a shortcut. A couple of things that occurred by trying to take a shortcut is you go through a bunch of land that's held by indigenous tribes and also other people that don't want the pipeline going through their land. So, they took a shortcut to try to save money. And then the pipeline was described or presented to the American people as just a shortcut when it was not just a shortcut. It was going to add a significant amount of oil to the Gulf Coast. It wasn't just a shortcut. I heard that every day for years. It's just a shortcut. It's not a shortcut. Yeah, they took a shortcut, but it's not just a shortcut. It added, if it was just going to be a shortcut and not add any capacity, they wouldn't do it. They're not going to go spend $10 billion on a shortcut unless the shortcut benefits them somehow. And the way it would benefit them would be adding like another 800,000 barrels of oil, right? So it wasn't just a shortcut. The shortcut was meant for them to save money, and it ended up blowing up in their face. Because that shortcut is the whole reason it's gone. If they would have just twinned it to begin with, It'd be flowing oil today. It'd been flowing oil for years. So great question, Jobu. Thank you. Thank you, Dale. Have a live goal on TikTok for corn. It's corn. If you have some corn, Jill likes corn too. We both like corn. Thank you so much, Daria, for the kind words. Michael says inventories appear. They could test the 5-year range. Yeah, they're definitely testing. I don't know if you looked at the chart. The inventory report came out last night. I pulled it up this morning and looked at it. Looks like we're about 500 billion cubic feet below the 5-year average. And we're definitely dipping. Next week, it is going to be pushing that 5-year range, just like you're talking about. It absolutely is. The only question is, does it go below it, right? Ukrainian parliament member is speaking on television right now, and she looks like she's about to cry. I can understand. I can understand. Was the XL going to move tar sand oil to make plastic? No. That's another thing that's not a thing. We were told, and let's keep it real. We were told by the climate lobby and people on the left for years that was going to move tar sand oil. No, that's not a thing. Just to make plastic? No, that's not a thing. We don't receive tar sands from Canada. You cannot put tar sands in a pipeline. This is a product that would go through an upgrading process before it was put in the pipeline. It's mostly syncrude, right? You can't put tar sand in a pipeline. It doesn't flow, right? So there's always some sort of process it goes through before it gets put in a pipeline. The oil that comes from Canada goes in our cars as gasoline every single day. It's not just for roads. It's not just for plastic. It's not trash. It's in your car right now. It's gasoline. It's diesel. It's jet fuel. It makes everything that our oil makes, and then some, because it also makes a significant amount of petroleum coke that we sell and ship all over the world. So it's a little different makeup of oil, but it makes all the same products. That's right, Daria. You can't put sand in a pipeline. It doesn't flow. That's not a thing. Will Westmoreland, back 40. Current policy is driving up food futures. What do you see happening to oil and gas if food increases significantly? Will we spend less on fuel for discretionary, like vacations? So that's a great question, Will. If you see inflationary pressures around the economy, it will affect demand for gasoline. It won't affect demand for diesel significantly. It'll affect demand for gasoline the most. What impacts gasoline demand, right? Inflation. Inflation is the number one thing that impacts gasoline demand. And it's not just gas inflation, it's inflation everywhere. People drive more when they have a few extra bucks in their pocket. They drive less when they don't, right? So inflation is one of the number one drivers of reducing gasoline demand. High inflation reduces demand. This is why we never returned to 2019 demand levels after COVID. It wasn't because there was less gas cars. There's more gas cars. The reason we never returned to fuel demand in 2019 after COVID was, one, inflation. People had less money. Their insurance is more expensive. Their food is more expensive. Their gas was more expensive for a long time. Now gas has come down, but everything else is still more expensive. That hurts gasoline demand. Another thing, aging population. Another thing, remote work. We have 22, 23 million working people in the United States that work remotely. Remote work has become a huge thing after the pandemic, and that is also contributing to lower fuel demand. But even with all of this going on, demand for gasoline is still rising. A lot of people are saying we hit peak demand in 2019. We're getting close to getting back to 2019. It's just taking a long time because we've been in a very long inflationary cycle. It's taking a long time because we've been a long inflationary cycle, remote work, all of these things, aging population. So I wouldn't say we've hit peak gasoline demand yet because it's still climbing back to the peak. We'll have to see where it tops out at. Great question, Will. I appreciate that. Wi-Fi says, and cars are more efficient. Cars are more efficient, and EVs do exist, but they actually have about the least amount of impact of all the things I listed. Have a much greater impact than fuel efficiency and EVs. Believe it or not. When you have 23 million people working remotely, there's not anything close to 23 million EVs in this country. I can tell you that. What is it? 3 million at most? Yeah, the remote workers, the inflation, much larger impact. The fuel efficiency thing has been around for a while. The EVs are slow to catch up. EV sales are flat. Not having a huge impact yet. It doesn't mean they don't have an impact. It's just, it's not one of the main drivers as of yet. How much does how much do petroleum coke cost? I don't know. I don't know. Isn't tar sands oil also more corrosive by itself? Absolutely. It's extremely corrosive. And, you know, even once it's upgraded, it's still more corrosive than our oil. Has a lot of CO2 in it. CO2 is highly corrosive to steel. Highly corrosive. Yeah, I know you were being funny. $3.9 million, Jobu says. Thank you for that, Jobu. What would be the impact if everybody switched to fuel efficient cars overnight? We would have to see what the impact would be, but it's not a possibility, right? There's not 250 million fuel efficient cars sitting on lots waiting for people to buy them right now. And even if there were, all of the cars that are not fuel efficient would still be available. Right? They don't just disappear. So I tell people, you know, this guy, what was his name? This Belote guy from Canada that thinks global oil consumption is going to drop to 25 million barrels a day by 2050. Because the world is, it's going to be all EVs by then. If every car in the world sold starting today was an EV, all the cars would not be EVs by 2050. They wouldn't. Do you think turtleneck sweaters are still fashionable, or is that not a thing? Well, this is an opinion, right? I don't. I can't speak for everyone. I say that's not a thing. You're not going to see me wearing a turtleneck. Jill, are you going to put on a turtleneck?
No, absolutely not. I cannot stand turtlenecks.
Right. So there's two people that say no.
But you knew I was going to say that anyway.
Oh man. I want to see what the retail numbers are today for all of the people boycotting buying anything. Honestly, and I hate to be negative about this stuff, but it never works, right? I don't expect this to have a huge impact. And that's just not me being negative. It's just not enough people participate. And typically everyone goes the next day and buys whatever they wouldn't have bought the day before. Like it just, it doesn't have an impact. It really doesn't. Lori says, Mr. Matt, the only suit I own is a tracksuit. I use it for walking around our local park. I don't even own a tracksuit. I don't think I have a tracksuit. If I do, I don't know. There's no telling what I have that I don't know about. Somebody probably bought me and I threw it in the back of a closet somewhere.
I don't think I have a tracksuit either. So when you wear a turtleneck, right? Because I have worn them before. Do you not rip at them like you just yank and yank and yank? That's why I don't wear them because I can't stand that. Like I keep yanking at it, like
Yeah,
stretching.
I gotta I gotta have air, right? I gotta be able to breathe right here. Like I don't want this covered up. Um, I don't know because I've never worn a turtleneck one time in my life. Never.
So I have worn them. I gave them that chance, right? But I literally stretch the neck. Like I keep yanking on it. I can't stand that feeling.
Yeah, I'm not. Philip says, tell that to Bud Light. Well, Bud Light isn't a thing that people need, right? And even with all these people not buying Bud Light when that happened, Bud Light was perfectly fine. You know what happened when the whole Bud Light thing happened? Uh, we further enriched a bunch of rich people. That's exactly what we did. Every time we do something like this, we only further enrich the rich. Rich people are sitting around waiting for y'all to boycott something, waiting for it. That way they can short it and then they can buy it long when it's low. Like they're making a fortune on your boycotts. That's what rich people do, right? Hey, look, 1 million people aren't going to buy Bud Light. Guess what stock I'm about to short? I wouldn't drink Bud Light anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? Like I boycotted Bud Light before boycotting Bud Light was cool. Why do some refineries not seem to repair insulation on lines after turnarounds or repairs if it would make the energy consumption lower? That's a great question. I would say poor management. I would say poor management. Or maybe they don't have the staff, you know? Maybe they don't have the staff, maybe it's poor management. Do you think Trump and Elon want to make people start going into work again instead of working remotely in order to make people buy more gas? And if so, why? Does it benefit them in either way? I don't think it's about buying gas. I think some people just have a core belief that people should get up and go somewhere to go to work. I think they just have, because that's the way it's always been, right? And people are averse to change. People hate change. So, this idea is completely foreign to some people, that people can work remotely and earn a living and be productive. Like, some people cannot grasp that concept. Even though we've spent trillions of dollars over decades developing technology for all of this to happen, now that it can happen, they're like, no, that's not a thing. Well, I mean, it is a thing. People can work remotely. Uh, you know, do some people not perform well working remotely? Sure. Some people probably perform twice as good when working remotely. You know, it depends on the person and it depends on the job. Rusty says he shorted Bud Light and paid for his shop. There you go, Rusty. There you go. For example, Canadians canceling US travel is billions of dollars lost even for just a month. That is a good example, Philip. I would agree with you on that. That is something that actually has an impact, right? Um, that is something that actually has an impact. But I'm talking more about these boycotts that kind of come and go and they last for a few days. Those don't really have much of an impact. But yeah, people not traveling to the United States will have a huge impact. As a matter of fact, I don't know if any of you guys saw this. There was a report out today from the Atlanta Fed, and I went to their website to look at the data myself. The Atlanta Fed is predicting a negative 1.5% GDP for the first quarter of 2025. Negative 1.5%. So we've gone from, I believe they initially in early January had predicted 2.9% GDP growth. Now they are predicting a negative 1.5% contraction to GDP. So the word recession is going to start floating around, right? We're going to have, if this holds true, if their prediction is correct, and as of right now, let's be clear, this is just a prediction. The first quarter isn't over yet. We haven't seen the GDP numbers yet, right? So this is just a prediction. But if this prediction holds true, and I tend to believe that whether the prediction is true or not doesn't matter, I do believe we'll see a contraction because they can't be that far off. They're not going to be 1.5 points off, right? So maybe it's a 0.5 point contraction, or maybe it is 1.5. The word recession is going to be pounded in your ear holes every day for the next 3 months. Okay? April, May, and June. The word recession is going to be pounded in your ear hole every day because we're going to be waiting for the second quarter numbers to come out, and they are immediately going to say that we're in a recession if we have 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. So that's a thing to look out for. That's a thing to look out for. I'm not saying a recession is coming. I don't know. I'm just saying the Fed is saying 1.5% contraction first quarter. That's not good. Right? Not good. And I say this as someone who probably knows less about this stuff than a lot of people because I don't really pay attention to this kind of shit. This isn't my jam, right? But I know what 1.5% contraction means. Yeah, XYZZ says long-term bond yields are lower than 3-month bonds That is a traditional signal for a recession within 12 months. Florida real estate. Yeah, I was about to mention that, Jobu. I've been hearing a lot about Florida real estate lately, signaling a recession. Hi, Nadia. So don't go say, don't go say, hey, Mr. Global said we're in a recession. That's not what I said. One of the things that I fight the most on social media is people repeating things that they thought I said that I didn't. And so all over social media, there's people saying, Mr. Global said this and Mr. Global said that. And I'm like, I never said that. I never said that. What are you talking about? So I want to be clear. I'm not saying we're in a recession. I'm saying the Atlanta Fed is saying we're going to have a 1.5% contraction in the first quarter. Boom. That's it. That's all I'm saying. And unless we change the definition. So, I think we had, I think we had 2 quarters of negative growth at one point during the Biden administration, and people were arguing whether that was a recession or not. And it was my understanding that that's historically been how we determine if something is a recession or not. If it was a recession, we came out of it really fast because that third quarter we had growth, right? Fourth quarter we had growth. So I'll let other people argue over what is a recession and what isn't. I'm just saying they're predicting 1.5% contraction. That's it. That's all I'm saying. Do with that what you will. Daria says a bunch of Canadians unloaded their Florida properties and flew back midwinter to abandon the U.S. Wow, I hadn't heard that. I had not heard that. Just imagine if DeSantis gets rid of property taxes in Florida. So I'm actually a fan of doing something with property taxes. I've been saying this for years, and since I'm in the real estate business, I see this a lot. I see people that's been in their home for 20, 30, 40 years, people that's paid off their mortgages, and then get underwater due to their property taxes. I don't think that's right. One thing to remember, most of these property taxes, at least where I'm from, these are all county taxes. These aren't federal taxes. These are county taxes. And that's something that's going to have to be addressed if they try to get rid of property taxes. Are they going to write a law that says the county can't assess and tax property? Are they going to, I guess what I'm saying is, are they going to overrule states' rights to do that? How's that going to look? What's that going to look like? I don't know. I don't know what that'll look like, but do I sell Tupperware? No, I do not sell Tupperware, but understand something. If you're in the oil business, you are automatically in the real estate business. The oil business is a real estate business. It is. It's like McDonald's. You remember the movie about McDonald's when the guy said, you're not in the fast food business, you're in the real estate business? That's what the oil business is. It's a real estate business. It's acquiring land and trying to keep it and waiting for the property value to skyrocket when they find a bunch of oil on it. That's basically what the oil business is. Most of the wealth generated in the oil business is not from oil and natural gas production. For small companies, it is for big companies, but how those big companies became big companies was by holding assets that skyrocketed in value. If you look at any billionaire oil investor, what took him from being worth millions to billions is asset appreciation. Asset appreciation, which financed massive production. So the oil business is real estate business. But when I say I'm in the real estate business as well, I'm talking about residential. But I would absolutely sell Tupperware if I needed to. I didn't mean to ruin your joke. I was just pointing out that, a lot of people probably don't realize that the oil and gas industry is, at its core, it is a real estate business. But that's not even really the real estate business I was talking about. Why are you not talking about Zelensky and Trump's argument? I did talk about it at length. You just missed it because you weren't here. Yeah, I talked about that at length, Brandy. How will Florida fund the schools? That's a good question because we use our property taxes in Oklahoma. It funds a lot of our schools. That's what funds a lot of our schools. It's not the only thing that funds it, but that's another thing that have to be addressed. When our property taxes go up, it's because we're spending money on schools. We're still gonna have to get that money from somewhere. And also keep in mind, anytime the government gets rid of any tax, they're just going to replace it with a different kind. If you go to a state that has like no income tax, it's because they have replaced that with a different kind of tax. Typically property taxes. Property taxes in states that have no income tax are unbelievably higher than property taxes in states that have an income tax. They just replace it with a different kind of tax. If you own property in where I live, if you own property in the state of Oklahoma, no matter what happens, you're going to pay because you're a property owner. That means you have to pay. So they're talking about getting rid of the income tax in Oklahoma. That's great. They're already saying if they do, they're going to raise property taxes. You know, they have to keep getting the same amount of revenue. So taking money out of your right pocket and putting it in your left pocket, or however you want to say it, at the end of the day, no matter how much they dress it up, you can put lipstick on a pig, but at the end of the day, we're all still going to be paying the same amount of taxes. We're just sending it to a different address, but we're still paying the tax. Yeah, if Florida gets rid of their property tax, they're going to have to replace that, and they will replace it. Something's going to go up. Sales tax, income tax, I don't know. Something's going to go up. That's true. A lot of people don't know. Rusty says, look at Texas. I can't remember if Texas is first or second, but they're either first or second. It's California and Texas, property taxes. Highest in the country, California and Texas. And I can't remember, and maybe they go back and forth. California's number one, Texas is number two, or Texas is number one and California is number two. But I know they're one and two. I thought New Jersey was up there as well. I'm sure New Jersey is up there. Yeah, I'm sure. I looked this up a couple of years ago. I was researching something, and I knew property taxes in Texas were high. But I must admit, I was kind of surprised to see that Texas was that high. I'm sure New Jersey's really high. I'm sure New York is really high. But the thing about Texas being that high is Texas is a deep red state. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, it's purple. It's purple. We're going to flip Texas. You're not flipping Texas. I've been hearing you're going to flip Texas damn near my whole life. It's never almost happened, right? So we can talk about Democrats flipping Texas when it happens. It's not a purple state. It's a red state. And for whatever reason, the more the Democrats think they're going to win Texas, the worse they lose in that election. So Texas is a red state. Red typically means low taxes, less government, all that, right? Not in Texas. High taxes, high property taxes. They don't have taxes on groceries, and they don't have income tax, which is great for people that don't own a house. But if you want to achieve the so-called American dream where you own your home, you're going to have to pay for it in Texas. You're going to have to pay for it. And Rusty has got my back on this one in the chat. Sib says New York is insane. I live 25 miles north of New York City, and my 1,200 square foot condo is $16,000 per year property taxes. Your 1,200 square foot condo is $16,000 a year in property taxes. Wow. What is that? Is that about what, 15, 14, 1,400 a month? Something like that in property taxes? I know where I'm not moving, to wherever that person lives. I'm not moving there. My property taxes are 1/4 of that. My property taxes are 1/4 of that. And I live in a pretty large home. Like, I think it's 4,500 square feet. And my property taxes are not even 1/4. They're like, I think they're 3,000 or something. Mary says, I prefer property tax as a write-off. Well, that's the thing, Mary. That's a great thing, right? But they're trying to kind of they're trying to limit that as well. They're trying to limit how much you property taxes you can deduct and how much value you get for that. That's another thing they've gone after in recent years. Yes, I remember Ann Richards very well. Is it Droscher? Is paying $5,600 in California. The thing about these high property taxes are they are unbelievably detrimental to your retirement. You know, Brian's talking about someone paying 30 grand a year. Joe Boo says his was 58 and his insurance was 6. Could you imagine, like, if your property taxes are say they're $10,000 a year, right? What if they were 3? And you could just take that extra 7 and stick it in the S&P or your retirement fund or whatever over 20 years. Like, that is an unbelievable difference in your quality of life in retirement. But no, what they're going to do, they're going to beat you over the head with property taxes. And then when you get to those retirement years, you're going to be forced to sell the home you spent your life building. You're going to be forced to sell it so you can survive, because you're not going to be able to pay the property taxes. So you got to sell your home that your kids grew up in and your grandkids know, right? Grandma and grandpa got to sell their place that the whole family's spent 30 years of holidays and Christmases. And because the county wants $15,000 so they can stick a new sidewalk at the football field. Yeah, fuck that. Fuck that.
after listening to what everybody says, what they pay for property taxes, I will never again complain when mine comes in.
uh, what are yours, Jill?
17.
$1,700. After age 65 in New Hampshire, you don't have to pay property tax. That seems legit to me. That sounds good. Makes sense. You got to pay for this shit the rest of your life. I mean, you never own it. If you have to pay for it, you never own it. My property taxes in Arkansas are $58 for 142 acres. Well, land is taxed differently than improved property, right? The land that I've owned in the past had very low taxes because it was just raw land, you know. Isn't the crime rate really high in Florida? I never thought much about crime in Florida. I'm sure it's high in some places and not bad in others. I really don't know. I can't speak about that intelligently. I don't know much about crime in Florida. Um, it's probably relatively high. Anywhere where you have a lot of people, you're going to have more crime. Like that's just a thing, right? More people, more crime. That's why they measure crime on a per capita basis too. But my HOA is cheap too, where I live. My HOA fees are $250 a year. Jill gets that property tax deal in exchange for 6 inches of snow each week. I'm sure she'll take it.
If I could get a better deal for all the snow we get, I would take it.
How many people are on YouTube, Jill?
63.
It drives me crazy that I can't see that number with this software. I can only see the number of people in the chat. I can't see the number of people watching.
3 people left.
Mr. Global, do you attend HOA meetings and teach your neighbors about oil? I've only ever attended one HOA meeting in my life, and it's a fascinating story. Jill has heard this story. Mr. Global goes to an HOA meeting. That could be like a whole piece of content right there. So we had an issue with a neighbor one time when I was gone. He comes over to the house and no shirt on, shorts, and comes over to my house and speaks to my wife and asks her if he can go skinny dipping in our pool. Yeah. So that didn't work out well for him. Turned out he was the HOA president. So I got to attend my first HOA meeting shortly after that. And when we left that meeting, he was no longer the HOA president. Um, Not only was he not the HOA president anymore, but my wife was now the new HOA president. Yeah, yeah. Mr. Global attends the HOA meeting. Um, and that was a small thing. I there was other things. I wanted to react in another way, and fortunately, uh, I have people around me that sometimes give me advice, and I sometimes listen. And that time I did. And by people, I mean my people here on social media, because I don't play well with others, and I'm I grew up and I'm pretty wild. I'll put it to you that way. I don't. I'm one of those people that don't care about anything. Like I don't care what people think. Like I go to jail. I don't care. Put me in jail. I don't care about jail. I'm gonna handle my business. Um, so I was talked out of that, and but I had to find a more creative way to make my point, I guess. So was I a wild teenager? I was the wildest teenager around. I was quite well known for my antics. I'll put it to you that way. I did sorta. I did sorta. You know, I ordered. I offered to get him his own pool. In a way, yes, that's one way to put it. Would hydrogen-powered vehicles be a better option to EVs at this point? No.
Yes, he offered to get him his own pool, just not as large as his. And he also offered to teach him to swim. So there's that.
They make it sound a lot better than it was. No, hydrogen-powered vehicles would not be a better option than EVs. I mean, I guess if we had all of the infrastructure and could produce hydrogen cheaply, in a perfect world, yes. But in the world we live in, you know, where are you going to buy hydrogen? How are you going to fill your car up, right? How are you going to drive across the state? If you do find a place to fill up, it's likely going to be the only place around for hundreds of miles, right? It's just not there. There's nothing there yet, right? There's no infrastructure. There's nothing there. Even for folks that have like hydrogen powered EVs, they can't go very far. They can't go anywhere because they have nowhere to get hydrogen. They basically have to stay right there where they are. Um, were your teachers glad to see you graduate? So, no. Actually, my teachers loved me. I was a good kid in school. I went to school every day, had perfect attendance. You know, I didn't get in a lot of trouble. I did get into trouble occasionally, but I was actually a pretty good kid in school. It was when I was, because I loved school. It was when I was outside of school is when we had problems. That's when I was wild. Um, Mary got her natural gas bill today, and I rocked the coldest month I remember, 10.7 MCF used. The delivery surcharge and $18 meter reader were 3.2 times the cost of the natural gas. Exactly. Exactly. So 10.7 MCF, for those of you that may not know, that is 10,700 cubic feet of gas. The M is 1,000. Okay. So that is 10,700 cubic feet of gas that she used. But her delivery surcharge and meter reader was 3.2 times the cost of the gas. Wow. So I'm going to guess that, okay, Mary, I'm going to do this in my head. I'm going to see if I can calculate your gas bill in my head. 10,700 cubic feet of gas. I'm going to say your gas bill was somewhere between $280 and $290. I'm going to say about $70 for gas. I'm going to say, actually, I'm going to say it was about $300. $70 for gas and $230 for everything else. How close am I? And what I'm really trying to figure out is what they're charging you per MCF. That's what I'm really trying to figure out, because I know what they should be charging you. I know what they should be charging you. So I want to see if they beat you over the head on the gas as well. They obviously beat you over the head on everything else. Does Global have "That's Not a Thing" merch yet? I've designed all the shirts and I have them ready to go, but I've ordered some because I'm going to make sure they are good before I start selling them. So I ordered some samples so I can look at and inspect them, make sure they're right. If they're not right, I'll go another direction. So that's coming soon. That's coming soon. Do I need to reset my goal?
Not yet. Somebody needs to finish it up. Hold on.
I thought I heard the noise go off. Never mind. Is the reason electric is so high because Trump froze the clean energy grants? No, that was going on long before that. Your electricity is so high because utility companies are price gouging on delivery charges. Utility companies are price gouging on delivery charges. When all the electric bills that people send me, and somehow I've become the person that everyone sends their electric bill to, which is fine. I love helping people with that stuff, even though I'm not really a lot of help. I'm just explaining to them. Everything I'm seeing is utility companies are just beating people over the head on delivery charges that shouldn't even really exist. I mean, they should exist. I pay a flat rate every month for my delivery charges. It's $40 a month, no matter how much I use. It's basically what they charge me to be hooked up, right? People are paying $400 to $600 a month for what I'm paying $40 a month for. Do they come with a mini chainsaw? I don't think so. I don't think so.
You can reset your goal now.
That's sold separately, Jobu. If you want the mini chainsaw, that's sold separately. What? I can?
Yeah.
Did you do that?
I did. I finished it off.
Why did you do that?
It needed reset.
Oh, boy.
It gets people going.
Oh, yeah? A new goal. Tiny goal. Lori's property tax is $880 a year in North Carolina. That's not bad at all, Lori. I would take that. Would you be able to tell me the effect that corn ethanol has on gas prices? Yeah. So, it definitely saves you a significant amount of money on your gas, but it's different in different parts of the country, right? It's different in different parts of the country. And if you Google that, you will get some number, but that number won't be super accurate. Uh, the best way to tell is by looking at the gas prices on the pump. Because if you go to your gas station, you should have at least one option for ethanol based fuel, right? If you Google that, you'll probably get a number anywhere between 50 and it can range. They will tell you anywhere between 50, 60, maybe as much as 80 cents a gallon that it saves you. But I've never once seen that gas, right? I've never seen that gas be that much cheaper than normal gas at my gas pump. It's normally what I see is 25 or 30 cents cheaper at the gas pump. But like I said, it's a little bit different in a lot of different states and areas and regions. So the best way to determine how much money you're saving if you're buying E10 or E85 or whatever you're buying is just look at the pump and see how much cheaper it is. Now, one of the problems with just looking at the pump is if you really want to know how much money you're saving, you're going to have to factor in your fuel mileage loss because you do get less fuel mileage with ethanol than you do straight gas. And so if you wanted to be a nerd about it, like I would be, because that's something I would be a nerd about, I would calculate how much money I'm losing on my fuel mileage to truly determine it. And a good number is 2 miles per gallon. So just calculate 2 miles per gallon and that cost. And that'll get you pretty spot on, right? Because, if you save a few bucks a tank to buy that gas, but then, every 30 days, you're having to buy one extra tank, how much money are you actually saving, right? If you've got to do an entire additional fill up, then you're not saving near as much money as they tell you are. So you have to factor that in. If there's an additional $60 outlay to fill up one whole extra time over a month, then you need to be saving more than $60 during that month in the cheaper gas, or it's just a wash, right? And if it's a wash, don't buy ethanol. If it's a wash, don't buy a lower grade fuel if it's a wash, right? If there's no benefit, if there's no savings, then don't buy it, right? Because it's obviously not as good. If it was as good, you wouldn't be getting less fuel mileage. That's how I would look at it.
So, before we continue, see that number up there where my coins are, everyone? There's 138 people in here. Hit that, oh crap, hit that number up there, right? And there's a Mr. Global on there that followed me. Everyone go block that Mr. Global. It has two coins, that means they followed me, so go in there and everyone block that Mr. Global. Just hit the number 563 and it will come up and you'll see the Mr. Global. Just block that person. Okay.
I love it. Yeah. The fake Mr. Globals, they have no problem coming into my live streams. Has anyone purchased propane for their home? I have not, but any either one of the chats. Hey, Smarty Pants, how you doing?
So anyone who doesn't see the 563, it's in my box at the top left. It has a blue circle right there. That's coins.
Rob says, I heard that ethanol sort of replaced anti-knock compounds in gasoline. So I've heard that about MBTEs, which is a methylbutane additive that is an alternative to ethanol. I've heard that about MBTEs, and I've probably heard that about ethanol, but I honestly don't know if there's any truth to that. I don't know where that came from. And the thing is, I don't understand why ethanol would have an anti-knock quality to it. You know, I understand. It can be a bit of a lubricant, but does it really work for that? Is I think the question I'm asking myself right now. So, propane is $3.87 in New Hampshire. I do know, Rusty. It's about $2.70 in Oklahoma. It's probably cheaper in Texas than it is in Oklahoma. I could be wrong, but have you heard anything about China buying oil from Canada? Okay, I have. Okay, listen. Canada and China doesn't have some new agreement on oil. That's not a thing. That's something that started on the internet. I don't know where it came from, but it's not a thing. It's not. When Canada was building the Trans Mountain Pipeline, they secured those new contracts in advance. When they build big pipelines, LNG terminals, any of that kind of stuff, they secure contracts to sell those products in advance, often before they even begin any construction phase of any of those projects. So, and Canada was already selling China some oil before the expansion of the Trans Mountain. They were already shipping a little bit to China. So this was stuff that was done a long time ago. This isn't anything new, right? Canada didn't go to China because of what's happening between China or Canada and the U.S. That's not a thing. These are contracts that have been in place for years. So yeah, Canada does sell some oil to China. So do we. Smarty Pants says, I was never a fan of ethanol in fuel due to mileage decreases. I think farmers should produce food and drillers produce fuel. That makes sense to me. Did I see the Zelensky Trump debacle? I did. I did. And I'll repeat for the people that weren't here earlier. I believe the whole Trump Zelensky debacle was intentional and staged. They did it on purpose because they knew the talks were failing. And so they put on that show so they could blame Zelensky for the peace talks failing. That's what that whole thing was. That's what that whole thing was. Just my opinion. Just my opinion. Scott Gilliland wants to know, what are your thoughts on diesel emission restrictions? Is DEF more harmful or helpful? Depends. So DEF is definitely more helpful to the environment, but it's definitely more harmful to your pocketbook. And anybody that's driven a diesel that has DEF knows this. I drive a gas burner now, but I drove diesels for, I don't know, 25 years. Once that DEF system goes out, I mean, forget the fact that you're having to buy DEF for the life of the damn thing. Even though it's not that expensive, it is a pain in the ass. But when those things fail, it's super expensive. As a matter of fact, every diesel that I've had I basically drive it until the DEF system fails and then I trade it in. I drive it till the DEF fails and then I trade it in because you're looking at $8,000 to $10,000 to make that repair. Why am I going to spend that kind of money on some old truck I beat the shit out of? I'm not. Right? It makes me wonder if it's some sort of planned obsolescence. They know a lot of people, instead of laying out 10 grand to fix a truck with a couple 100,000 miles on it, they'll just buy another truck. They just buy another truck. That's what I did. And the reason that's a problem is, if you drive a diesel and you take care of it, you take care of the engine, you keep up the maintenance on it, there's no reason you can't put 300,000 or 400,000 miles on that thing. But it's impossible to do with DEF system these days. So it is, at least for me. For me, it's been impossible. So my answer is they're harmful. They're harmful to your pocketbook, but they do reduce emissions by an unbelievable amount, right? So they do reduce emissions, but you're going to pay for that. You're going to pay for that. If the problem is sweet crude refining capacity, couldn't we solve the crude dependence problem? Sweet crude refining capacity isn't as significant as everyone thinks it is. We can refine as much of the sweet crude we want. We absolutely can. It's just a lot less profitable. It's a lot less profitable. We bring in heavier oil, we mix it with our sweet crude, and we refine it as a blend. That's how those refineries work best. Does not mean they don't work. You can run straight sweet crude through those refineries, but you won't be utilizing some of the equipment that you've purchased. Spent billions of dollars on this equipment to refine heavy crude. You're going to want to refine heavy crude, right? So it's not that they can't refine. We refine over 9 million barrels of sweet crude every day. It's not that we can't refine it, but it's a profit thing, right? We make more money by buying cheaper oil. You save money on gas when refiners buy cheaper oil, right? Fuel efficiency seems to increase on DEF deleted engines. That's 100% true. At least in my experience. I haven't read anything on that, but it is 100% true in my anecdotal experience. Scott says, I thought with ultra low sulfur diesel, it's redundant to add DPF systems. So ultra low sulfur diesel, only addresses, a couple of the pollutants with diesel. It doesn't address a lot of the NOx stuff, right? Jill, what in the world is going on your screen?
So I was moving around, right? And that's just the sunlight coming through.
So for the people that have missed it, that may have joined a little later, one thing I talked about earlier was I made a piece of content yesterday talking about how the drilling ban in the Gulf of Mexico is actually still in force. And that is because when Donald Trump reversed Joe Biden's drilling ban, he did not reverse his own, which is in effect until 2032. When Joe Biden, or whoever that worked for Joe Biden, wrote the language in his drilling ban, he explicitly excluded any verbiage about Donald Trump's drilling ban. Typically, when you write an executive order or a presidential memorandum that is meant to override something else, not typically, always, if it's meant to override something else or revoke something else, it's explicitly stated in the text. So Joe Biden's executive orders were written minus any text, dialect, language about Donald Trump's drilling ban. As such, Donald Trump's drilling ban is still in effect until 2032. And there's another thing for the people that missed this earlier. You paid $2.38 an MCF. That's less than spot prices. The current spot prices, I think $3.90. So what that means is your utility company hedged their gas. They got a contract, probably 6 months or a year. They purchase gas a year in advance at a set price. So that's good for you. That's really good for you. What's bad is when that contract expires, your utility company is going to have to either accept the spot price or try to buy another 6 or 12-month contract at a set price. And they will do that depending on how they forecast gas prices moving forward. If they charged you $2.38, that means they're probably paying $1.50, which is what gas prices were last year at their lowest. So good for you, Mary. Anyway, back to Donald Trump's thing. When Joe Biden signed the executive order banning drilling in the Gulf of Mexico, a lot of the Democrats celebrated because his executive order was based on law, on the Outer Continental Shelf Act. And basically the way this works is this is a memorandum, right, that cannot be reversed. Because this is a memorandum that's tied to a piece of legislation, the Outer Continental Shelf Act. So what that means is that technically Donald Trump cannot reverse what Joe Biden did. Now, he did make an executive order to reverse it. That's being challenged in court, and he's going to lose because he lost the last time he tried to do this. But here's the thing. Donald Trump's executive order to ban drilling in the United States or in the Gulf of Mexico also had that piece of legislation attached to it, which means that Donald Trump can't even reverse his own drilling ban. Not that any of it matters, because there's no bans where we drill anyway. It's just funny. It's just funny that Donald Trump forgot to reverse his own. The reason the Biden administration didn't attempt to reverse Donald Trump's ban is because they knew they didn't have the authority to do it. That's why they left it out. When you read stuff like that and gain a better understanding of what's happening with these executive orders and memorandums, and you study the language in them, and you get a lot more insight on the capabilities of the administrations, of what they know about government and how things work. That's what you gain a pretty good understanding of. And it's vastly different, reading an executive order or a memorandum put out by the Biden administration and then reading one put out by the Trump administration. One of them is like reading something where someone knew what they were writing and knew what they were doing, and the other one looks like a fucking elementary school kid wrote it, basically. $4.91 delivery. Yes, Mary, that is absolutely price gouging. They're basically charging you more than twice as much for delivery as they're charging you for the gas. And that's how they get around it. That's how they get around the regulatory agencies, the state regulatory agencies. That's how they get around that. Delivery charges. I'm curious, Mary, if you're in a regulated state or a deregulated state. I can tell you this, if you live in a deregulated state where your utilities are deregulated, you're paying more for utilities than anyone else in the country, except for other states that are deregulated. All of the highest states in the United States for utility bills, for electricity, for natural gas, all the highest ones are all the deregulated states. So, you might look and see, if you don't already know, if you live in a regulated state or a deregulated state. Is there any efficiency gain in refining gasoline from either natural gas or oil? Just curious if there's any advantage either way. So that actually depends on what you pay for the oil or the natural gas. Now, almost all of the time, there's more efficiency gains in refining gasoline out of oil than there is natural gas. You get about a 6% gain in oil. Natural gas, you actually lose product, but natural gas can sometimes get really cheap. So if natural gas is super cheap, then you can actually achieve a better gain. It's really pegged to the cost of what you're paying for that, right? Because the energy density of natural gas is higher than the energy density of oil, right? But, you get something called product swell with oil, or refining swell, where you gain about 6%. So if you refine a 42-gallon barrel of oil, you get about 45-gallon of product out of it, right? That's not the case with natural gas, because that gain is realized through changes in density, right? You're taking a much heavier fluid, and you're basically, changing the molecular makeup of the long hydrocarbon chain, right? You're changing that, and you end up with a less dense liquid, which gives you more volume. That doesn't happen with gas, because you're starting with a gas and changing it to a liquid. So it's more efficient almost all the time with oil, but if the price is right, it can be better with natural gas. But making gasoline out of natural gas is not a typical, widely done thing. It's just not. So, thank you, Mary. The difference between Tolkien with a pen and Bobby with a crayon. Well, yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Yeah. Hi, Rick from Holland. How are you? I've been to Holland. I love Holland. I can tell you right now. One of the best places I've ever visited in my life. 100%. Just absolutely fantastic. What do I think about Holland stopping natural gas production? I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy. Every place that has done this has had major significant problems. Specifically the UK. And because when you sacrifice your ability to produce large amounts of energy, you sacrifice your ability to to have industrial growth. You sacrifice your ability to have growth in manufacturing. So it's not about it's not so much about the type of energy. It's about the fact that you can no longer produce the energy you need to expand your industrial base, to expand your manufacturing base, right? So it has a large impact on your overall economy. It stunts its growth. So I'm not at all opposed to Holland having so much renewable energy, but they should keep natural gas as a backup, because what they're going to end up doing, they're going to end up buying a shit ton of liquefied natural gas to make up for the difference, and they're going to end up paying twice as much for their gas just so they can say they're climate friendly. That's what they're going to end up doing. They're going to end up buying a shit ton of LNG. They're going to pay 14 or 15 bucks an MCF for it when they could produce it themselves. That's what's going to happen. That's what we've seen happen everywhere. You absolutely can get gasoline out of natural gas, 1,000%. You can make anything. You can make any hydrocarbon product out of any other hydrocarbon product. You can make gasoline out of coal. You can make gasoline out of coal. There is a process for everything. And just because it's not typically done doesn't mean you can't do it. You can absolutely do it. You can 1,000% make gasoline out of natural gas. It's easy. It's actually a lot easier to make gasoline out of natural gas than it is coal. Both can be done pretty easily. Space Monkey says, I love Holland. Everyone is tall, happy, and love to dance. So when I was over there, they thought I was a local because I'm really tall and I'm blue-eyed. And so they thought I was from there. And I was with some other Americans. And like, if we would get approached by a waiter at a restaurant, they would come talk to me because they'd make the assumption that I was from there. And I'm like, nah, I'm American. I'm not. But yeah, wonderful people, very friendly, very clean. I love the trains. I love the high-speed rail. Peel says you cannot refine. It's a different process. I suggest you look up the definition of the word refine. It doesn't mean what you think it does. It's kind of like people that don't know the definition of a fossil. We've had a lot of people who think oil is not a fossil fuel because they don't know what a fossil is. They think a fossil is a bone or an imprint on a rock. It's not. That's not what a fossil is. Yeah, that's what you learned in grade school because that's how it's easy to explain it to you. The definition of a fossil is the remnants of any former living organism, period, right? And what a lot of people don't realize is when we say oil is a fossil fuel, we're not saying it comes from fossils. We're saying it is the fossil. Oil is a fossil. It's not derived from fossils so much as it is the fossil, right? It is along the timeline of the degradation of fossils. It is a fossil. It's a fossil in a very specific state, right? That's what fossil fuels are. They're fossils. That's not a dinosaur bone. That didn't come from dinosaur bones or an imprint of some bug on a rock. No, it didn't. You're right, but that's not the only thing a fossil is. You know what I mean? Refining is almost always defined as fractional distillation. Well, I find that hard to believe considering the word refining existed for 1,000 years before the word fractional distillation existed. Refining, the word refining existed forever before fractional distillation. How can it mean that when it existed before that, right? It's not worth it, man. It's not worth it. I mean, you can carry on, but this isn't going to get any better, I can tell you. Good to see you fixed your audio sync issues on YouTube videos. So how I did that was I stopped using an app to scrub my watermarks because I learned recently, thanks to some people, that I can do that straight on the TikTok app now, where it automatically downloads my video. And that was something they didn't have when I downloaded that app. I didn't realize that it changed. So yeah, I'm glad that's fixed as well. Is the oil business changing in terms of technology in the future, or is it still going to be extremely physical job forever to thread pipe and all that? No, it's changed drastically. The people that work in the industry now don't work near as hard as, you know, physical manual labor as we did back in the day. They don't. They have all kinds of gadgets and tools and shit that just does work for them. Now, they do put in the hours. You know, I don't want to diminish what they're doing. They put in the hours and it's still hard work. But it's nothing like it was in the 90s when I was doing it. Nothing like, yeah, it's nothing. A lot easier now. A lot easier now. Senator Graham is going to speak. Oh, I can't wait. Someone that always has something stupid to say. Lindsey Graham. You can always count on Lindsey Graham to say something stupid. Or something that's the complete opposite of what he said yesterday. Yeah, Rusty knows. Ask Rusty. Not even close. Not even close. E. Jones said it is, in fact, the complete opposite of what he said 3 days ago. Yes, it is. Hi, Bait. How are you? Thank you for joining us. Did you do a video about Landman's shows wind turbine misinformation? Yes, I did that back when that came out. Back when that show came out. Yeah, a lot of misinformation there. So PL, I fully understand the refining process and how it works. This isn't about the refining process. This is about you parsing words. You didn't like the fact that I used the word refining. It, you know, it has nothing to do with the process. Why is America not talking about midterm elections that can overturn Trump's Congress? Probably because it's a couple of years away, you know? Probably because it's a couple of years away. And honestly, I'm fine with that. I have lived in a world where we have been campaigning nonstop, year round for years. And I'm sick of the campaigns. You know, politicians shouldn't be campaigning 365 days a year. if politicians are campaigning 365 days a year, when are they working? When are they working? You know what I mean? I don't want to hear about the midterm elections that are coming up in 2 years for about 18 months. I don't want to hear nothing about it for about 18 months. It's, you know, so much is going to change. What good does it do to talk about it now? Hell, we might be in a deep recession in 6 months, you know. Drilling is still a strange combination of old school hard work and cutting edge drilling technology downhole. That's exactly right. It is. It's a lot of elbow grease and it's a lot of crazy technology that a lot of people don't understand. Even a lot of the people involved in it don't understanding. Like drilling has changed so much in my lifetime. It doesn't even look like the same thing. It really doesn't. It doesn't even look like the same thing. When I was 18 years old and roughnecking on a drilling rig, we were working 12-hour towers. I might work an entire tower without making a connection because we literally didn't make enough hole in 12 hours to pick up one fucking joint of 5.5-inch drill pipe. I, I that cannot be a thing anymore at the rate we're drilling these wells. That cannot be a thing. I can't imagine in 2025 working 12 hours without making a connection. But I used to do it all the time. I used to do it all the time back in the day. Shit, we'd be drilling ahead at 2 feet an hour. 2 feet an hour. Hey, we're gonna make a bit trip? Nah, we're making hole. We're making 2 feet an hour. We're not making a bit trip. Philip, I was mostly asking if the old school hard work would eventually get replaced by technology. Yeah, a lot of it has. A lot of it has. Now, for the most part, you still have 4 or 5 man crews that are working, but there are drilling rigs out there that are being run by 1 or 2 people. A lot of the work, automated. There's a lot of other things, like ancillary type services and projects that you know they can do things now that they would have never dreamed of. A couple of years ago, I saw, I can't remember what they call the machine, and keep in mind I haven't worked in drilling in shit 28 years, but a few years ago I saw a machine that torques up casing on the ground. And then you pick up the casing, and so you're basically running 2 or 3 joints of casing at a time instead of picking up one at a time. Things like that. There's just tons of stuff that's changed so much, it goes so fast now that it had to change. It had to change. When I worked in drilling, we picked up one joint and drilled. We didn't have any pipe in the derrick. We would pick up a joint of pipe and we'd go drill until we needed another one. Now all their pipe is standing up in the derrick. They're picking up stands of pipe and drilling ahead. That's how they do it around here. We didn't do that in the early '90s. Couldn't do that. When I got into drilling, they hadn't even invented the top drive rig yet. That wasn't even a thing. Mary Brown, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat, Mary. I really appreciate that. Smarty Pants says, a lot of the slow drilling disappeared 20 or more years ago when the roller cone bit was replaced by the PDC. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. Brian says, as soon as the meeting was over between Trump and Zelensky, Russia started full-scale invasion again. Yeah. Tony, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Man, I really appreciate that. If you have a question, please ask it. Thank you so much, Tony. I really appreciate that. What is the strangest thing you've seen come out of the deep earth? You know, honestly, I've never saw anything strange. It's just cuttings. And if you do see something, you know, come across the shakers that doesn't belong, it's probably something that you put in the hole. It's not something you drilled up. That's been my experience. Now, I've spent the vast majority of my career, you know, in completions and well interventions, and you know, I have 5 years of drilling experience, and you know, I did a lot of investigating incidents on drilling rigs as well. But if you see something weird, it's probably something that ended up in the well from surface, right? Mr. Global, Zelensky can make a mineral deal with anyone? I guess. I guess. What do you know about the capped wells off Nova Scotia? I don't know much about those specific capped wells. I can speak a lot about capped wells, but I would have to Patsy, I would have to look specifically at those wells. Is there something about them, or is it just a general question, or do you have something specific about them um, you would like me to address? I haven't watched the Zelensky Trump tet for tet yet. Yeah, it's not that great. Almost to my goal right here. I'm at 44 of 50 to reach my goal. Thank you guys very much. 100,000 federal employees fired in Florida. No job, no insurance, no unemployment. They are voting Democratic.
Tap, tap, tap. Global space. Hitting 20K. Tap right on his face.
Why do Trump supporters think rescinding the drilling ban in the Gulf will drop gas prices? Because that's what they've been told. We're printing over here. We're printing.
I was gonna ask you, what are you printing?
I'm not printing. Someone else is. Appears to be a real estate contract. So we must have sold something.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that's what they've been told. They've been told that that'll lower gas prices. They've been told a lot of things will lower gas prices that won't. So, you know. That's a wicked loud printer. Well, it's right here in this cabinet, about 18 inches away from me. And And I got two microphones on, so that probably doesn't help. Do you think our military will keep their oath to the Constitution? I hope they don't have to. I hope they don't have to. Sorry. If you could have a new oil project anywhere in the world, where would it be? Man, I don't know. I would probably stick to what I know the best. So if I could have a project anywhere in the world, it would probably be the Permian Basin. Uh, because I believe strongly in sticking to what you know, and I know that field like the back of my hand. I spent a lot of years there. I did a lot of projects there. Did a lot of research and development work there. So, I think I would do it in the Permian Basin just because I think it would be wise. I think it's wise to just stick to what you know. Um, I did quite a few things there that many companies that operate in the Permian Basin adopted. I had a lot of success there. Man, this thing is still printing. This is not a fax machine. No, this is not a fax machine. Where did I work in the Permian Basin? I worked in a lot of areas, but I worked for Shell. Um, and our acreage was the core, the best acreage was definitely north of Mentone in that area. Um, but we had a pretty vast map of acreage that I worked in, but the printer could function as my alarm clock. Probably wouldn't wake me up. Thank you, Simply. Oh, Jill, fax machines are coming back. You better get them fixed. We will have them until we reach the 60s. That's right, because we're going back in time. You know what I noticed, Jill?
Yes,
Have you seen any of the new music coming out?
probably. I mean, I haven't really paid much attention, but probably.
So a lot of the new like country music that's coming out today is like music from the 60s.
No, I could.
I don't know if anyone's noticed that.
I have not. That I did not notice, but I don't listen to country music.
Well, I don't either, but like I'm on TikTok, so I stumble across this shit that's trending, and you know, you'll see some guy up there wearing a suit like Hank Williams wore in the 60s or 70s and playing music that sounds like it's straight out of the 60s or 70s. Same style, same everything. It's like we're going back in time. I told my wife, I was like, well, since we're going to go back in time, I guess we're going to take the music with us. You know, I can't remember that guy's name. One of the guys I actually just started listening to, but I can't remember his name. His name's Charlie something. Um, he looks like he's straight out of the 60s.
Crazy.
Yeah, totally. Do you think Trump and his supporters have alarm clocks that go drill baby drill in the morning? I don't know. I think they're running away from that slogan as fast as they can. We're already not hearing it as much as we used to. It used to be in every other sentence that was spoken. You're not hearing that so much anymore.
Okay, that's making a comeback too. And yes, his supporters absolutely have an alarm that says drill baby drill, and they jump out of bed and they're like, drill baby drill. And yeah, absolutely.
That's it. So Melly Faye got it. Crockett. Charlie Crockett. Um, he's one of them. I actually just like in the last few days started listening to a little bit of Charlie Crockett's music because it's actually good. It's just weird that it's so traditional. It's like straight out of the 60s.
See, somebody proved my point right there in the chat.
What's that?
Drill baby drill.
Yeah. Is that the first one we've had today?
Oh, I have muted.
Because a month ago, every other comment would have been drill baby drill.
Yeah, I mute them usually. I left this one because he's just proven my point.
Why would you quote Sarah Palin? I don't know. I'm surprised Donald Trump hasn't come out and said he can see Russia from his house. My favorite Crockett is Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett's pretty cool too. Yeah. Triton says the snooze button for that alarm clock every 9 minutes would be Mr. Global's voice saying that's not a thing.
Oh, I got an idea. We need to make alarm clocks that say drill baby drill for an alarm. And then when they snooze it, it does say that. Like, we need to do that. Like, don't tell them that it says that. Just say the new drill baby drill alarm clock. It will wake you by yelling drill baby drill. And then when they hit the snooze or shut it off, you will be there going, that is not a thing. That's perfect. That's not a thing, you can say.
You know, the problem with that, Jill, is I don't want to be returning 10,000 alarm clocks.
Well, no refunds. We'll just do what Trump does. No refunds.
Okay, so an alarm clock, and the alarm goes off, and it's drill baby drill, and the snooze is that's not a thing. Just like Triton said, right? But we don't tell them the other part.
Right, we just tell them the new alarm clocks that will awaken you by yelling drill baby drill.
Dude.
Do not tell them. Even when they shut it off, you're going to yell, that's not a thing. So, yeah, we just don't tell them that part, and no refunds.
What about this? Also, we put a battery in it that they don't know about. That's activated once they plug it in the first time. And then if they unplug it, it just starts saying that's not a thing over and over again until the battery dies. And they can't turn it off.
Yes. Absolutely. I am 100% on board with that.
And we could probably get Rudy Giuliani to sell it for us.
Yeah, because he won't listen to it, right?
Well, because he's broke.
Yeah, and he won't use it, right? Because he'll be like, I know that it's not a thing. So then he'll be like, but I'll help you sell it. Yeah.
Man, we're going to change the world. Triton says this has turned into quite the merch brainstorming session. Yeah, this isn't the first merch brainstorming session we've had. We've fallen off into this rabbit hole a couple of times in Julie's live, um, which will be reflected in my T-shirts. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. I don't know how to make or sell alarm clocks, but I'm sure that's just a slight little barrier we can overcome, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, you know, not knowing how to do something has never prevented me from trying it. That's for sure. Uh, a lot of the successes I've had in my life is by doing stuff I had no idea how to do. So why not try it again? I don't know if Rusty is still here, but he can probably attest to this. When you're in the oil and gas industry, you're kind of working your way up, right, through the industry, and you know, you're getting a little better jobs and little better jobs. You know, you kind of just at some point, and it's happened a lot to me, and I know it's happened a lot to other people. Someone calls you, and they'll say, "Hey, do you know how to do this? Right? Do you know how to do this?" And even though you don't know how to do it, you just automatically say, "Yeah, I can do that." And then you got to go out there and figure that shit out, right? Because then you got to go do it. But I don't know how many times in my career I told people, "Yeah, I know how to do that." Something I had no idea how to do. Because as long as you're the guy that knows how to do it, then you'll always have a job, right? So I just figured it out. Did anyone notice the Army Choir choice of song at the governor's dinner? I did not, Mary. Yep. Fake it till you make it. Listen, everybody has done it. Fake it till you make it. Everybody's done it. You just got to have enough confidence in yourself to know that you'll figure it out. And if you don't, there's people around that will help you, right? There's people around that will help you. You know somebody that can help you. Call them, right? Jenny says, doing what I couldn't got me to build my first race engine. Yeah. You know, when I built my first race car, I hadn't been involved in racing since I was a kid. And I built my first race car as well. But you know, that's kind of a thing that you can take your time doing and make sure you get it right. You can't do that with $1 million project that someone wants you to work on. That's shit you got to figure out right now. And you know, even when I was building my own race cars, I didn't build my own engines because even though I could, I knew I couldn't do it near as well as an engine builder. So that's the one thing I didn't do when I built my race cars was I didn't build my own engine. Um, and like I said, it's not that I couldn't because you know building an engine isn't actually that hard. But I also knew the limits of my ability, and I didn't want to spend a bunch of money building something myself that's going to blow up in 2 weeks. So I did outsource the engine building. All right, folks, it is 4:30, and I'm going to shut her down. I ran a little longer than I wanted to today. Thanks, everyone, so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. It's really good to see all the same familiar names back in here every day. Jill?
Thank you, everyone, for the gifts.
Thank you, Jill.
You're welcome.
You guys have a great weekend. I'm sure I'll be on tomorrow. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you guys so much.